here we are. This is Sex Love Psychedelics, and I'm your host, Dr. Kat. Bringing you psychosexual conversations that will leave you intellectually turned on and hungry for more.
Okay, so there's several different directions we can take here. I'd like to start with some of these symptoms related to sex, because obviously I'm a sex therapist, so people are coming in, like, I don't desire sex anymore, or the vaginal lubrication or increase of UTIs are happening. So maybe we can talk about that. What's changing with the lubrication with the tissues?
Yeah, well, the tissues are actually, so the vaginal and vulvar tissues have lots of estrogen and testosterone receptors. So, and especially actually the more external structures like the clitoris and the vestibule is where you go from outside to inside, right? So you do see a lot more testosterone receptors in that area. And let me just stop for a moment and tell people that I feel like, if anybody's following social media, testosterone is kind of this brewing conversation in women. It's really interesting, and I think it's really important. But women have more testosterone than estrogen. They don't have as much as men, but we at our peak, we have maybe like 3-4 times more testosterone than estrogen on average on a daily basis. So and testosterone doesn't go off a cliff, right? It just gradually declines. So that has a slower impact. If you have less testosterone, you're getting less stimulation, less sensitivity in a good way to some of those external structures. The estrogen is fluctuating wildly. It'll go like crazy high and then really low. And the estrogen is really important in terms of the tissue itself, like its thickness, collagen, elastin, which is important for like stretch and touch and comfort, blood flow, oxygen, nutrient deposition. So that tissue becomes thinner, more easily damaged, more inflamed. And blood flow is what's largely responsible for lubrication during arousal. So if you don't get that same, even if the tissue is getting engorged, you're getting more blood flow to the area. So even like you mentally may be like interested, but you don't have the same response physically because you're not making as much lubrication naturally. So these are things that are fixable though, whether it's using topical vaginal hormones, which are safe and effective and amazing.
Oh, good.
Okay. Prescription, or just the right lubrication. Maybe you're a person who never had to use lube before. Lube is a magic thing. It's a great thing. And just being more and being more attentive. The other thing is like bodies change, like things move. What felt good maybe doesn't feel good. What doesn't feel good starts to feel good. I think it's where there's such this interesting convergence of like self-image, body awareness, intimacy, fatigue, stress, and physical things, which can be the perfect recipe for, newness, novelty, and reigniting your sexuality, or for disaster, because it's not going the way you thought it's going to go. It's not going the way it went. Or you just don't even want to start, I mean, like, where do you want to start with this? I mean, you're a sex therapist, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like,
I do.
Right? I mean, is it that like you're pissed off at your partner and they're not carrying their weight at home, or there's some conflict going on that's not being discussed? Oh, not sexy. You're making a list in your head because it's parent teacher conferences next week, and you also have to go shopping. Like, not sexy, or is it that you're just tired, and when your head hits the pillow and your routine was you have sex in bed at night, you want to go to sleep, you don't want to be touched, or it's not feeling the same. Like, right, if it's painful, why would you want to have sex?
And the layers and the layers of that go on and on. Contextual factors, environmental factors, cultural conditioning factors, dysregulated nervous system health. Like, like when people come into my office and they're like, I need help with it. I was like, okay, here we're going to go through a whole layer of the potential conflict here. But to come back to, the tissues, as you're talking about, the tissues change and they become more thin and more likely to tear. This is when I see a lot of clients, like the increase of things like UTIs or the increase of painful sex or the increase of like the lack of lubrication. And you mentioned that, adding, I don't know if you have a favorite lube, but ones that I like. Uber Lube is my favorite.
Yep, totally. That's my favorite.
Coco Nu. Yeah, Coco Nu is another one that I use.
Coco Nu is nice. I haven't used it for a while, but Coco Nu can irritate some people. But the truth is, as we get older, the silicone-based lubes tend to work the best because they stay slick longer. And then the other thing is like with the water-based lubes and the oil-based lubes, obviously you can't use if you're using condoms and certain toys and things like that. Just have to be careful. If those work for you, that's great. They can be really hydrating. But the problem with some of these other lubes is that they're either going to get absorbed into the tissue, which is then not going to decrease friction, or they'll pull fluid out of the tissue, which will also increase friction. So people just have to be super careful and aware. And anything that's got like a lot of weird chemicals and like
glycerin
smells and like it's just going to irritate you, like cinnamon, or I've seen that, or mint. I'm like, oh, no, that sounds like a very bad idea for this kind of tissue, because this tissue is super sensitive.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun. Thanks for tuning in, lovers. And if you want to experience more ecstasy and sexual liberation, head over to sexlovepsychedelics.com and learn about how you can join me for any one of my online or live events. And while you're there, grab my free guide on sex and psychedelics. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please contact your healthcare provider and local law before pursuing any of the products or psychedelics discussed. And one final note here. I make this show specifically for you. If you're loving the show, then be sure to leave me a review in iTunes or Spotify to let me know. Happy to be here and happy to serve. I'll see you next time on Sex Love Psychedelics.